welcome back to this episode of CJ Discusses. Today we're going to discuss Survivor Season 47, Episode 7, which aired last night. We start with Teeny recapping the Tribal Council, and she is absolutely ecstatic that Rome is out. And to be honest with you, I think we all are, because he was getting to be pretty annoying by really going Boston Rob. I know I've said that before, but he really was trying to assert dominance over everyone, and it's just a different era. It's not going to work. You need to really have a good social game and be more of a team player in today's Survivor game. He just wasn't that. But again, she's happy that he's out. She's happy that they burned the journey idol that she had with the other two members, and that's now out of play. The only thing that she is regretful about is the fact that Saul was the lone vote for Andy, and now he's going to have to do something to repair that relationship with Andy. We then go to Saul. We see him talking to Andy, kind of explaining that, he thought that Rome had an idol, and he thought that Rome was trying to gun him. And to be honest with you, Rome was up front that he was getting Andy out. So that was, that was valid. And he needed to get another name out there, and he was given Andy's name by Sam, which was a shock to Andy because he thought that he and Sam had a pretty good relationship, were friends, and were alliance members. So while Andy was originally pretty upset with how everything went down, now he kind of understands and realizes that Sam and Sierra are not his allies, and he needs to go and find some people that he can work with. So he starts trying to figure out a next plan. We then go to the next morning. We see Andy on the beach trying to strategize. He's trying to see what numbers Sam and Sierra have and what he can do to try to start pulling numbers in his direction. And it's kind of really refreshing to see Andy, taking this more assertive role and not playing the victim like he did in that first episode. So we're starting to see a journey for him. Where that journey is going to lead, who knows? But at least he's becoming a better Survivor player and being more assertive in what he wants to do. But Genevieve finds him and realizes that she has now lost her number one. Rome was her number one, and she's in the market for another one. So Andy and Genevieve then become allies, and they're going to start branching out from there. We also see all the women together, and they realize that they now have an advantage over the men, and they really want to get another man out. And Teeny's kind of leading the charge on this, and she really wants to try to get together a Black Widow Brigade version 2.0 and see if they can run the game. All of the women seem to be pretty much on board with this, but it's going to be an uphill battle. It's really early to try to start putting that together and playing it out, and we'll have to see how the challenge works out and how everything kind of starts shaking out from here. We then go to the immunity challenge, and Jeff tells us that you're going to need balance, speed, and endurance in order to win this challenge. He then goes on to explain it, and again, it's one of the classic Survivor games. You're going to be standing on a beam, a balancing beam, with a really long pole balanced on top of your head. At the end of the pole is going to be a little table, like plate-sized table, and you're going to have a ball that you're going to need to keep on that plate as you move down this beam. And it will be live the whole time, so there's not going to be any stops like there was in the challenge 2 episodes ago, I believe it was. Where they were able to go ahead and take the ball off of the bow as they move down. Now they got to transition and still keep it all centered. Jeff also springs a surprise on us and says that they're going to go ahead and draw teams. So why are they drawing teams, you might ask? Well, because this is also going to be a reward challenge. The winning team is going to get to go back to camp, and they're going to get ribs, potato salad, corn on the cob, beer, soda, and be able to really, enjoy themselves for the rest of the afternoon. And also have immunity from tribal. They will go to tribal, but they will only observe. They will not be voting, and they will not be voted out. So that's a pretty big win. The losing team will go to tribal that night. They're also going to go back to the Lavo camp, so they will not get to go back to the main camp. So I hope they brought everything with them, because if not, then the odds are pretty good that they left their shot in the dark back on the camp. And they will enjoy that. The winner of the losing team, though, does get immunity for that evening. We go to the random rock draw, and the teams are divided up. We see that on the yellow team, it's going to be Genevieve, Sierra, Teeny, Saul, and Sam. So it's pretty much Lavu and Gatu. On the other team, though, is Trouble. You got Rachel, who's from Gatu, And then you have Caroline, Sue, Tiana, Gabe, and Kyle, who are all Taku. So if they lose, I mean, it's a foregone conclusion that Rachel's going to go ahead and get voted out. So hopefully they win, or she gets immunity if they lose. We go ahead and kick off the challenge, and pretty much right away, Andy is the first one to go ahead and drop his ball, and then Rachel's right behind. So there goes what I just said, right? No immunity for her, so now she's got to hope that her team wins. They pretty much go into a live transition at that point on the beam, and then Sierra and Tiana drop their balls. Both teams are pretty much even at this point, but then as they go into the next transition, Saul goes ahead and drops his ball. Sue does eventually drop hers, so again, the teams are evened up. As they go into the last transition, Gabe falls off the beam with Caroline and Sam dropping their balls pretty close by, or pretty close after, and then Kyle goes ahead, and he's the last guy up there for blue. He goes ahead and drops his ball. So while the blue team does lose the immunity challenge, Kyle does get immunity again, so that's 2 weeks in a row, and yellow is going to go ahead and get their feast. While they're at their feast, everybody's talking about, there has to be an idol back at the Lavu camp. Since one was played the night before, another one has to be coming back in, so it has to be over at Lavu camp. But if anybody knows anything about Survivor, whenever there is a reward feast, there is usually an advantage that is also associated with that feast. And lo and behold, there is one hidden in the base of the tent that was erected, which is pretty much right next to where Saul is sitting. Nobody is looking for it at this time during the feast. We go back to where the Taku camp is, and they are all strategizing. Sue's saying that they can't leave Rachel alone because they don't want her to go get an immunity challenge or an immunity necklace or some type of advantage. So somebody has to stay with her at all times. And Gabe is also saying that they need to come up with a plan to talk her out of using her shot in the dark because guarantee she's going to play it that night. And she is basically the consensus at this point to go ahead and get voted out. As we go back to the main camp, everybody's pretty much in a food coma, and Andy has decided that this is the time to go ahead and look for some type of advantage that may be hidden. He can't find anything, and Sierra sees what he's doing and calls him out on it. Andy then goes ahead and settles down, but Saul goes ahead and gets up at this point. He thinks everybody's kind of settled back in, and he starts looking around and sees that it's basically been sitting right next to where he's been at. So he goes ahead and sits back down and is able to go ahead and secure that advantage. As we go back to where they are on the Lavu camp, we see that Tiana really wants to try to get Gabe out. She thinks that if they come back and vote Rachel out and come back 5 Taku strong, that they're just going to get picked off one by one over the next couple of weeks if they don't win immunity. And everybody honestly does seem to understand that, so they don't think that voting off Rachel, it should be the number one decision. But who, if not her, then who? So Tiana goes to Kyle, and he's on board to go ahead and get Gabe out, but they need a third. And they go and try to talk to Caroline about it, but Caroline's not really having it. She doesn't want to get Gabe out. She doesn't think it's time for a big move, and she thinks that it should be Rachel. Gabe thinks that maybe it should be Caroline. Maybe Caroline's the one that they should get out. And then they go back and they're trying to convince Rachel, that all these shots are flying all over the place, but none of them are going to land on her, trying to keep her from playing her shot in the dark so that all of the options are still on the table. So really, there's no consensus as to what's going to happen as we go back to the main camp. As we go back to the main camp, while everybody else is playing a little bit of beach baseball, Saul's faking that he's got stomach cramps due to all the food that he just ate, so he can get into the woods and take a look at his advantage. He got a good advantage. He basically has to send this over to the other camp. It must be used that evening, and they can either block a vote or they can basically just get up and walk out of tribal, and they won't be able to vote, but they also won't get voted out. So it's a really good advantage to have, and he has to make a decision on who he's going to go ahead and send it to. As they kick off tribal, of course, Jeff goes ahead and calls out the lopsided nature of the makeup of the of tribal that evening, that there's 5 Taku and then there's Rachel, the lone wolf. So, is it going to be the foregone conclusion that she's going to get voted out, or are they going to go ahead and cannibalize themselves in order to try to save themselves further down the line? There really is no consensus. There's a lot of talking, but really nothing is being said. So, after about 5 minutes of that, Jeff says, okay, well, let's go ahead. We're going to go ahead and open up the votes. and tells Sue to go ahead and vote. At which point Rachel says, "Hold on, Jeff. I have this advantage." So Saul has given her the advantage. He had to choose which one it was going to be, and it was the get up and run out of town advantage. So she says that she's out. She's tapping out for the night. Good luck to everybody else. And it's just a bunch of stunned looks on their faces as they're like, now what? So we reopen the tribal council, and it basically goes live at that point. And Tiana's scrambling, trying to get the support that she needs in order to get Gabe out. Gabe's telling Sue and Caroline to just stay strong and do what they're going to do. Kyle is making it sound like it is going to be, that he is going to vote for Gabe, and then he's trying to convince Caroline to do the same thing. Eventually, everything settles back down, and everybody goes and votes. Jeff goes ahead and collects the votes. Nobody plays their Beware advantage or any other advantages, so here we go. He starts reading off the votes. The first one is for Gabe, and then the rest are all for Tiana, which is pretty shocking because I honestly thought they were going to go ahead and get rid of Gabe that night. But Tiana is voted out. She's completely blindsided and gutted. I haven't seen somebody cry like that in quite a long time at Tribal. And unfortunately for her, she is not going to make the jury. So everybody from here on out will. So that's probably the most devastating part of this vote off, is that you will not make the jury. So we'll see how this all shakes out. I'll be interested to see if Saul does tell Rachel that he was the one that sent her that advantage, because he needs friends at this point. So this is a good way to build that friendship with other people, and maybe start building up his alliance in order to further himself in the game. So I'll be really interested to see how that shakes out next week. I'll see you then.